Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody survived the 4th of July weekend through the hot weather and the fair and back to normal. I'd like to call the July 6th City Council meeting for the City of Cannon Falls to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Bringold.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
Gesme.
Here.
Cronenberger.
Here.
Lundell.
Here.
Montgomery. Absent. Altoff.
Here. Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Duncan, a second by Gesme to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, first item on the agenda is a presentation of our 2020 audit presentation. And Brad is here from Abdo, Fisk, and Myers. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. You should have in your packets the audit report, the management communication letter, and the presentation that I'll go through tonight. I think we're going to try to get it up on screen, but it's not going to happen. So we'll just go with it. I believe it's in your packet, so you should have it in front of you. So the first page of that presentation, we talk about our auditor's opinion and the Minnesota legal compliance letter that we issue. The independent auditor's report or opinion, we're issuing an unmodified or clean opinion on your financial statement. So that's the opinion you're looking for when you have an audit performed. It's saying that we believe everything that's presented in the financial statements is presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principle and materially accurate. So we also issue another letter, Minnesotan compliance letter, and that is the state auditor requires us to go through a series of checklists. There's 7 checklists related to how you're investing your cash, how you're entering into contracts, issuing debt, those types of things. Different state statutes that they ask us to make sure you're following as well. So we are not reporting any non-compliance within the debt compliance letter this year. As part of doing the financial statement, we look at your internal controls, and if there's anything in those internal controls that we feel should be brought to your attention that raises the higher level of risk of misstatement to the financials or a risk of fraud, that we would bring those to your attention in the management communication letter. We have one internal control finding this year, which is the preparation of the financial statements. And this is here just, it's somewhat of it is an internal control piece because what we're given, we draft the financial statements as part of our process. Ultimately, it is management's responsibility to prepare the financial statements in our audit. And as auditors, it's our job to audit those financial statements. We do it in conjunction with the audit. We do that for probably 90% of the clients we work with. So it's nothing unusual. It's just, this is just here to really distinguish. We can only have in the financial statements what we've been told. So if anything's been withheld, that would be in there. So it really is just putting the responsibility back on management here. So, but we don't believe anything has been withheld. So, the next page looks at the general fund balances as compared to the following year's budget. You do have a policy to have your 40 to 50% in reserve of your following year's budget. So if you see that chart in the presentation, that's that gray shaded area. Mm-hmm. The next line up, the blue line, is where your fund balance actually is. So you ended the 2020 at 75%, just over 75%. And the top red line in that chart is the following year's budget. So you went from about 70% to 75% from 19 to 2020 in reserves. So staying above your minimum reserve policy. The next slide is the general fund budget to actual statement. So we have your original, your final budget, and your actual amounts, and then the variances. You can see your revenues were about $370,000 over what you'd budgeted. You did receive just over $300,000 of CARES money, which about $200,000 was recorded within the general fund. So that was unbudgeted at beginning of the year, is something that came in within that first quarter, or you're aware of it the first quarter, but was not budgeted for. So that was part of the variance there. Expenditures came in about $40,000 under budget. And so overall, your fund balance increased just over $400,000 last year to finish at just under $3 million in reserves. Next slide is a chart of where your revenues are coming from. So we have, I think all of you are well aware the tax revenues are the majority, how your general fund or general operations are supported with your tax levy dollars. That increased about $300,000 from the previous year. And then your intergovernmental revenue also increased slightly. Again, CARES money coming in this year, about $200,000. And then the miscellaneous and other round out the revenue sources within your general fund. Next slide is your general fund expenditures. So we've got this broken down by different functions: general government, public safety, public works, culture and rec, and other. So your general government, public safety has had steady increases over the 3 years presented here. Your public works has stayed pretty flat, along with your culture and recreation. Then we get into some of the other funds, your capital project funds on the next slide. You have a number of capital project funds listed at the top there, but the chart below shows where your fund balances, or how you can spend your fund balances. So you have about $200,000 of restricted dollars in capital project funds, about $700,000 of committed funds. Assigned funds are about just over $100,000 in assigned funds, and you have the unassigned funds. So the unassigned funds are where a fund maybe is in a deficit at this point. So you have a couple of them there. I think the largest one being Alexander Court, and you have started levying for this fund. So you are last year you put about $39,000 in there to bring that out of a deficit. So take a look at, as you're going through your budget process and those types of things, you want to go take it back and look at your funds and see if there's any are a deficit and how they are going to be coming out of a deficit. Make sure you have a plan in place. The next slide, special revenue funds. You have 3 special revenue funds. Special revenue funds, I want to make sure that wasn't me. Special revenue funds are funds where there's either a committed or a restricted revenue source coming in. So you have your library, your cable television, and your fire department operations funds are considered special revenue funds for your city. Library funds have $214,000. That's the assigned fund balance. Cable television is restricted because that's money coming in specifically for cable television. And then you have your fire department operations funds, where those funds are committed for fire department operations. And what we're looking for here is making sure your revenues are meeting your expenditures, and each one of these funds had increases in fund balance during the year, so meeting those requirements. Debt service funds on the next slide. So these are your governmental debt service funds, so not excluding any water or sewer type bonds. So these would be all your street buildings type bonds. You can see the chart below shows your debt service requirements on these bonds up to the end of what's shown here, 2034. So you can see in the 2021 through 2023, you have just right around $700,000 of principal and interest payments due on these bonds. That drops off in 2024 till about 2028 and drops off again. So these are all your current bonds outstanding. You did pay one of these off early in 2021 now. That was the second one listed there, the 2012 A bond. That did mature in 2022, but you had enough cash reserves to pay that off early. So took advantage of saving some interest on that bond. There was another bond you paid off as well that was related to the water fund. So that's not included in this chart. The next slide is the water fund. So with this slide, we're looking at cash flows, really making sure you're generating enough cash through operations to support your operations and your debt service requirements. So that's what the top chart is there. The blue is your operating revenues, operating receipts, and the gray and the green bar, that is your operating disbursements plus your debt service requirements. So in each one of these, we'd want to see that the blue is higher than that other bar there. So most years have been pretty much breaking even. 2020 had a slight revenue, or had a slight increase in revenue over that disbursements and debt. The chart below is your cash balances each year. So end of the year, 1.4 million, almost $1.5 million in cash. That's down slightly from the year before, which looking at the top chart, you'd think that would have gone up because your receipts are higher than your disbursements, but that top chart doesn't include any capital expenditures that were paid out of the water fund, so that's just general operations on the top. So you did have some capital expenditures that pulled your cash down slightly. The red line in that chart is a minimum cash reserve that we as a firm would recommend you wouldn't fall below. That's not a requirement or anything, but it's just something we kind of use as a gauge that to have on reserve 6 months of operating costs on reserve plus 100% of your debt service requirements for the following year. So that's where that red line comes in. Then we have our disposal fund on the next slide. Same thing with this on the top chart there, pretty much breaking even. Years 2017 to 2019 had a slight increase in 2020, but on the bottom chart you can see your cash balances are below that red minimum guideline that we'd recommend. So have stayed pretty consistent though, between 760 and 840,000 over the last 3 years presented here, but would want to continue to move that cash up to that, at least to that minimum line. Ambulance fund, the receipts have been meeting the disbursements all but 1 year presented there. Cash balance has hovered around that just over $200,000 mark the last 3 years, so it stayed pretty consistent. From 17 to 18, I believe you bought an ambulance that year, and then you did buy one this year too, but there was you traded in one, so the cash balance didn't drop as much as it did back in 17. But again, below that minimum guide there. Stormwater fund. So Stormwater Fund receipts have clearly been meeting your disbursements and your debt within this fund. Your cash significantly higher than that minimum requirement. However, the cash is still only right at $600,000. So anytime the cash is above that minimum, that really is cash there for capital type needs. $600,000 in the storm sewer fund if there's a repair that needs to be taken, that needs to happen, or if you have a project plan, the $600,000 will go pretty quick. So I don't see that as excess cash. I think it's good to have a nice balance in there, your stormwater fund. Deputy Registrar Fund. So here, Deputy Registrar 17 and 18 had cash deficits. In 2019 and 2020, you do have positive cash, though you are transferring in about $30,000 in it in 2020 to support the fund. So that is a fund that council has decided to support this fund with other revenue sources. Recycling fund. Right, with the recycling fund, your receipts have been meeting your disbursements. You don't have any debt service outstanding in the recycling fund, and your cash has steadily been increasing here. So recycling fund is doing well. Then we have this last chart on the results shows your cash balances over the last 3 years. You can see it went from 8.2 million to 10.2 million over the last 3 years presented here. Then the colors show where those funds are. So you have a lot of your monies in the enterprise funds, your water, sewer, storm, ambulance funds. You do have an increase in your general fund cash as well. Received the CARES money in this year, and you had an increase in the fund balance. So there are specific uses for your cash balances. It's just not sitting there idle. Then the last few pages, we do have some comparisons of your city and peer groups that we put together. So the class 4 cities, which is the green bars in here, that you're a class 4 city. It's a city. Class 4 cities are cities from up to 10,000 in population that present on the same. They're presenting not on a cash basis of accounting. So you're not presenting on a cash basis. So any other city up to 10,000 population would be included in this peer group within the state of Minnesota. The gray bars in each one of these categories or each one of these charts is other cities in Goodhue County, and then your results are the blue line. So tax rates. Not as, the average in the county is 77% as of 2019, and you're at 67% over the last 2 years. So slightly under what the county average is. Taxes per capita, though, you're right in line with, as far as in 2019. You did have an increase in 2020. We don't have the data for all the other counties yet, or all the cities in the county yet for 2020, so we'll have to see where that goes. But you're right in line with the others in the county. Next slide is debt per capita. So here we have just outstanding debt, total outstanding debt. So as you're paying your debt down, you can see the debt per capita line is going down as well. Slightly higher than others in the county and around the state of Minnesota. There are many factors that go into these charts and variables. I always point out, instead, don't just compare against the other cities throughout the state or others in the county. There's take a look at your line and your trend and see how it's going, and if it's going the direction you want to go, then you're doing well. Page 20, we have two charts: current expenditures per capita and then capital expenditures per capita. So the top one is current, so that's just you're taking out all your debt service requirements, taking all your capital expenditures, and just your general operation type expenditures. Pretty much in line with others within the county in that category. Slightly higher than those throughout the state of Minnesota, though. Capital expenditures is going to fluctuate from year to year depending on the different projects you have going on. We have it in there just to kind of show you what other cities are doing. The last 2 years you haven't done a ton of capital projects. Last two charts, the water fund debt service coverage ratio and the sewer fund debt service coverage ratio. Here we're looking for, it's similar to the other charts we looked at with our water and disposal funds, but we're looking at making sure you're generating enough net revenue from operations to support your debt service requirements. So anything over 100% here, you're meeting that requirement, and in both the water and the disposal funds, you are meeting that requirement. So those funds did well. So that's the presentation. Certainly would take any questions. Just want to thank staff too. Neil, Sarah's here, Michelle is not, but I'll did a lot of work in getting ready for the audit, and want to thank them for all their help.
One thing I think I ask it every year, is our water and sewer, we haven't upped our rates the last 2 or 3 years. Our funds seem to stabilize. What's your recommendation there? I'd like to keep, I don't want to add increase to it.
Sure. I think if you have a plan, you don't want to end up where you have a project or something down the road that you're not planning for. So if you would have to increase rates now slightly, you would avoid having a big spike in rates later. So if you don't have any big projects coming up, or if you don't think you're going to be needing any additional resources for any other, then you could probably leave the rates where they are. There's inflationary factors though each year too, so you want to try to keep in line with those. But it's kind of up to you where you're at with different projects that are be coming up. If you're going to be issuing debt, you got to be collecting enough money to pay that debt back as well too. So.
Yeah. Any questions in the council? No. Neil? No, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I need a motion to approve
So moved.
financial report.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Lindell, second by Bringo, to approve the presentation, the annual financial report. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, let's move into the consent agenda. And bear with me, there's, I think, 21 or 22 items on it, so, but for you in the audience at home, I'm going to go through the consent agenda. Consent agenda items may be adopted under one motion as presented, or may be removed for discussion and resolution as council business. Item A, just and collect claims for the accounting period ending July 1st, 2021. Item B, minute meetings for the June 15th, 2021 City Council meeting. Item C, minute meetings for the June 22nd, 2021 City Council special meeting. Item D, Resolution 2550, approving a limited use permit number 2504-0042 with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. Item E, Resolution 2551, approving a limited use permit number 2506-0040 with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. Item F, Resolution 2552, approving a limited use permit number 2502-0039 with the MnDOT. Item G, Resolution 2553, accepting a bike donation from Glenn Schultz to the Police Department. Item H, Resolution 2554, accepting a monetary donation from the Cannon Falls Fire Department Relief Association for $8,000 to the Fire Department. Item I, approve the purchase of a vehicle for the Ambulance Department. Item J, approve a police officer Cole Neubauer hire. Item K, Resolution 2555, authorizing the declaration of an urban district on County Road 17 between North First Street and Primrose Lane. Item L, approve a temporary on-sale strong beer liquor license for the Cannon Falls Bears. Item M, approve a request for traffic cones and barricades for the Cannon Car Cruising Club. Item N, approve a street crack sealing and spray patching quote from Payment Resources, Inc. Item O, approve a Mill Street West parking stalls. Mill Street West parking stalls. Item P, approve a no outlet street sign on Middle Street West. Item Q, approve a 2021 Park Street area improvements. Item R, Resolution 2556, accepting a drinking fountain donation from Art.org to the Parks Department. Item S, Resolution 2557, accepting a monetary donation from Irene Carnell Estate for $4,500 to the Parks Department. Item T, Resolution 2558, approving administrative subdivision of a combination for Nate's Garage at 1717 and 1713 North Highway 20. And item U, Resolution 2559, approving an administrative subdivision or lot split for Josie and Zach Hayes at 300 Carlson Road. Is there anything the council would like to pull down? I will make the comment, this is a lot of items, 21, 22 items, but all these items have been in committee, whether it's police commission, parks, public works, fire department, ambulance. They've all gone through committee, and the committees have recommended their approval to the council. So it's nothing that we're just sitting here tonight going through. So again, anything you'd like to pull down? If not, I take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Duncan and a second by Lundell to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll get into council business. Item A is Resolution 2560. It's the Rick and Jason Knowlton variance request. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah.
Good evening. There we go, try that. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. For those of you who have not met me before, I'm the City Attorney Sarah Schwartzoff, and I've been asked to introduce this item. So the item before the council is a request for a variance by Rick and Jason Knowlton at 6695 Bluff Drive. The variances being requested are a 3.54-foot rear yard setback. No, I'm sorry, that's the front yard setback, and a rear setback variance of 19 feet. And that's all detailed in the packet in front of you, including maps, et cetera. This item went to the Planning Commission for a public hearing on June 14th and was considered by the Planning Commission. Everyone was allowed to present their opinions, and the Planning Commission considered the matter. For a little bit of background, when granting a variance, it's a state statute sets forward the standards the council has to consider. A variance may only be granted if it's in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance and consistent with the comprehensive plan. And in addition, a variance can only be granted if there are practical difficulties. If you've been on the council for a while, you may remember hardship. This is a slightly different new test that the courts put in place a number of years ago. So it's similar, but it is slightly different. Practical difficulties exist if there are three things. One, the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance. Two, the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. And three, the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. So that's the legal standard you're considering tonight. Staff reviewed the variance when it came in, before it went to the Planning Commission, and was at the Planning Commission meeting, or reviewed the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission recommended the variance. They heard testimony from interested parties, and they determined that because of the shape of the lot and the orientation of the home, and primarily because no one objected, they recommended that the council grant this variance. Because of that, there is a draft resolution in the packet in front of you doing that. That would grant the variance based on the Planning Commission's recommendation. That being said, staff does not recommend granting this variance. Staff does not believe that this variance meets the legal standard that's required to be met. And then the primary issue is the second of the practical difficulties, which is that it's unique to the property and not created by the landowner. In this case, it's a standard lot. There's nothing unique about the lot itself. The only practical difficulties presented were that the property owner needed a single-story home, no neighbors objected, and that there were soils in the area that would make a basement difficult. None of these are unique to this particular lot, and therefore staff doesn't believe this meets the practical difficulties test. There's been some discussion about whether a variance can ever be granted on new construction, because if you've got an empty lot, what could the practical difficulty be? And I would say it's not impossible to grant a variance on a new construction, but it's very, very unique. And it usually has something to do with either you ended up with a very small lot somehow, usually it's a very old lot, or if you've got a lot that's got a weird geographical or topographical feature in it, if there's a ridge right through the middle, you may have a lot that's not buildable without a variance. In this case, we don't have that. It's a fairly standard size, shape, and topography for the lot. That being said, council, as I said, everything is in your packet, everything the Planning Commission reviewed, all the documents. There is a bit of a side note on this particular variance, which is a road issue. I know there's been talk of it in front of the council, or in front of the Planning Commission. I don't know if the council's familiar with this area. There are lots along Bluff Drive that some have been built on. One of the ones is in question tonight. That then is a T intersection with sandstone. Part of sandstone has been vacated, and that is the part to the, I'm totally going to get the direction wrong. Is that to the west? East. So the part to the east on sandstone has been vacated. Whoever comes in there will need to pull a new plat, get that sorted out. The T portion of sandstone here has not been vacated. So Bluff has not been vacated, and a small T portion of sandstone has not been vacated. So those are still city right away. There's been dispute over whether those have been vacated and whether those are open to the public. Those are two different things from a legal perspective. Vacation means the city went through a special process, held a hearing, vacated the road, and that means the city no longer has any interest in that area. If a road isn't open, what it means is it never got finished, and the city, as the road authority, said, yes, that's still our right-of-way, we still own that, and we may someday open it, but it's not safe, it's not finished, for whatever reason, it's not appropriate for public use. So the way staff views this is Bluff Drive is open. But staff used that section of sandstone that has not been vacated to be a closed road. What should have happened is when the development was finished and the road was finished, they would come to the council for approval and acceptance of the roads. And at that point, the city would say, yes, we've inspected, they're done, the roads are finished, the development is essentially complete. The city then accepts and opens that road. That never happened in this case due to the circumstances of the developer. So it is a unique situation, but it's not one that's unheard of, especially back in '08. This happened a lot where developers got halfway through and ceased to exist. So in this position, Bluff is open, Bluff has been accepted. There are plenty of driveways already entering onto Bluff. Sandstone is city right-of-way, but that portion there is closed. It is not open to the public. It has been used for things like garbage truck turnarounds and snowplow turnarounds, and that's really the city saying, listen, we own this. We're going to let you use it for these limited purposes because otherwise those things they'd have to turn around in people's driveways, and that's not ideal. The city could refuse to do that. They could close that totally and say, no, it's closed. It's a question of liability in that case. One thing to note that there is a rule that if it's used and maintained for 6 years, then it automatically is opened. This has only been used for 3 years, so it doesn't qualify for that either. So staff's position would be that even if this variance is granted, staff would not recommend and would not grant a right-of-way permit for a driveway to access onto sandstone. So if you put this variance aside and someone came in with just a standard development and they came in before staff would say, the house is fine, but you've got to have your driveway access off of Bluff because sandstone is not open. And on that note, on the property to the north, there is what looks like a small driveway off of sandstone. They'd never obtained a permit for that. That driveway is not there legally. So sandstone is currently not open, and driveways will not be granted off of sandstone. So it's not directly related to the variance before you, but I know it plays a part in the council's consideration. So I'm happy to answer any questions council has. Once I've answered council's question, the public hearing is complete, but we're going to give everyone a chance, 2 minutes per person, anyone who wants to speak. I'll keep time to make sure it's limited to 2 minutes so that they can make their final statement before the council considers it. So if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
What's the future plan for that road?
For sandstone itself? So this was all one plat, the piece on Bluff and all the properties on sandstone. So with sandstone not completed and closed, whoever owns it, when they want to do anything, if they came in for a building permit, they would have to start the process over. They'd have to plat the property, they'd have to dedicate the appropriate spots to the city, and they'd have to finish Sandstone Road and all of their improvements that aren't completed. So long-term, it will get done. It will be based on the timing of whoever owns that property.
So it will get done, it just hasn't been done,
Correct.
completed.
Correct, yeah. I know Bluff is done except for a final wear course and a little bit of repair and filling. Sandstone isn't close to done. If you've been out there, it's not in good shape. It needs a fair amount of work. So before any permits would be issued or any accesses would be issued, we would require the relevant property owners to essentially finish that road.
And that, excuse me,
No, go.
and that would be up to the developer, correct?
Correct, that would be up to the property owner and the developer to get that done, yes.
Anything else? Questions?
Not right now, maybe later.
So you want to,
Yep, so then we will open it up. Anyone interested in speaking can speak. You have 2 minutes. The council has reviewed everything, so take this time to give them your last thoughts on the matter. I'll be keeping time, so I'll let you know when your 2 minutes are up. And please introduce yourself and your record and your address for the record.
I would need more than 2 minutes just to respond to what you just said. I tend to agree and I tend to disagree with you. I have the legal documentation that shows when they closed Sandstone Road, they started at the south end of Lot A and went
Thank you.
north to Decorah and then out to Highway 25. So you say it's closed, I say it's open. There's been, like you said, it's been plowed for 3 years. Last fall, the city went through there with blacktop and repaired holes and mounted up around the manholes so the city plows wouldn't have trouble plowing the street. It's been used for at least 3 years because we built the first house down that way. When we purchased the property, we were not told, and it's like I said, I disagree, the road is open. When we purchased the property, if the road was closed, it should have been closed. So the reason we're coming before this
1 minute.
council is to position a house in there that fits the needs. The gentleman that wants to build here is Dave Pendleton. One of the issues is he has a handicap, a prosthesis. One of the other hardships is the Decorah clay. So we're building a slab on grade home and to accommodate his family, he needs a 3-bedroom home. Now, if I turn that house and redesign it, turn it the other way, I'm actually going to be closer to the property line to the west than I am now by turning it facing it to the east. So I don't know what to address first. I mean,
10 seconds.
what's that?
You have 10 seconds left.
Well, do we address the road issue, or do we address the variance? If without the road issue being resolved, you say it's closed, I say it's open. Legally, it's open.
That's your time. Thank you. Anyone else?
I also disagree with that.
Have Jason come up and talk. Welcome to America, folks. Isn't it great? Wow. Do you people all realize that you are the folks that closed the road from Outlot A on? Every one of you except for you, Laura. Each and every one of you. Don't you know what you're doing? You did it. So, the city engineer, the former city engineer, I don't know if you fired him, but you sure should have. He has a number 9 on Bluff Drive. The rating, 1 to 10. It's a number 9. Seriously? There isn't even a second lift on it. It isn't any different than the T at Sandstone Road. So who and when closed this portion of Sandstone Road? Nobody. You say that you can drive on it for 6 years? Well, they've been driving on it for about 18, and I have. And we can prove that it's been driven on over and over and over. And it's been going on the entire time.
1 minute.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you reminded me. So Limestone Road, which we all know where Limestone Road is, right? I don't think so, but anyway, Limestone Road is a number 1 rating by your city engineer. But they're driving on it, and they're building on it. So now how can it be that you close a road that's a number 8, and number 1 is alive and well? Doesn't make sense, does it? Do you understand what that all means? No, because you want to ignore everybody. Welcome to America. I love it here.
I'm Chris Albrecht. I've actually lived on Bluff Drive the longest of anybody at 6670. I also own 2 lots contiguous to the east of me. What was the third legal requirement that you had on property that had to be met?
The third practical difficulty is it will not alter the essential character of the locality.
Okay, so I'm the kitchen bath designer at Interstate Building Supply. I do anywhere from 100 to 200 new homes a year. And I go to hundreds of lots across the region. And the lot that Rick's the home that he's trying to put on this lot, it will not affect the essential character of this development. I've lived in it longer than anyone, and I don't believe in any way that it does. But there's some other things that have to be addressed. One, by the closing of Limestone, does it then affect future development? Remember, before Rick and I started buying these lots, or sandstone,
Sandstone,
sorry, sandstone, limestone.
1 minute.
Before we started buying these lots, this was essentially sitting, not being used. And we invested in the community to begin purchasing lots and developing up there. In fact, I tried very hard before the land went to Semcra to do the other outlot and build some senior housing up there. I mean, we have to look at the practicalities of do you nip in the bud development when we are trying to develop, or do you just make it just difficult every time we turn around? And the lot that this house will be backing to, Rick also owns. He would be developing the lot that this house is now shushing the other way. And he understands that. In other words, if this was affecting some other third party adversely, but it's not. Rick sees both lots.
Seconds.
And how that they're going to come together. But lastly, I mean, you have to look at, do we want to build more houses in Cannon Falls or don't we? And do you want to make it difficult for builders to do such? So.
Hi, Jason Knowlton, live up on Cedar Hills, kind of directly behind where we're talking about. And I just wanted to point out, and most of you probably know or been up there maybe lately and looked at the road conditions to where we're trying to face the house to, and that's probably the best part of the whole road up there. And what are we talking about here, guys? 200 feet of road, which has to be there anyways for trucks to turn around. If you're gonna close that road down, you're gonna put a legal turnaround in. We got a guy here ready to build, ready to go. I don't know why we'd run into so much opposition towards a road that is in great shape. So it seems to me kind of silly to, I guess, not consider it. Like I said, it's a small portion of the road. Road's in great shape, and I think that's about all I really have. I guess I don't have a whole lot to say, but it just seems like kind of a no-brainer. We're ready to go. We got another 2 more kids for the school district, another taxpayer in town. Let's consider it. So, thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
My name is Andrew Endress, and I'm here representing Leon Endress and Endress Cannon Falls LLC. We own the property immediately behind, south and east of the sandstone development, and we were just recently made aware that you guys had vacated the roads out there. We've been accessing our property through Decorah Drive for the last several years. I've contacted, Dave Pagel initially, Tony Hahn after him, and then Dan Howard as of recent to access our ag land that's back there right now and our future development potential land that we were hoping to have. So if you guys close this area down and don't allow access through it, I'm starting to kind of wonder what the, a developmental potential of our land there that was originally purchased for. So we give you this letter, I guess, so you have that on public record, and just wanted to kind of bring that to you guys' attention. That'd be really nice if you kept that area open. I think that'd be beneficial for the city and for us in the future. So, all right, that's what I have.
Anyone else? Then I'll turn it back to the council. Happy to follow up on any of those issues if the council prefers. Otherwise, I stand open for any questions.
My first issue is the variances, not even talking about the road. Is there any way to design that house so we don't need the variances? And on top of that, Rick, I think you own the open lot next door, correct?
Correct. I'm the only.
So what would your plans for a house be for that lot when you know you're already squeezing in from the corner lot? What would you have to do to put a house in there? And
When you have a corner lot, you're limited setbacks, 25 and 20 feet. So you're taking 45 feet away from that lot. Where an inner lot that's 80 feet, you're allowed 5 feet to the garage and 10 feet to the home. So you can make that work. Even if I put that house the long way, north to south, now I could be 5 feet away from that property line with a 50-foot garage wall. Now, me owning the property next to it, that's undesirable to me. I'd rather be 6 feet or 8 feet away from the property line to a 16-foot porch than 5 feet away from a 50-foot garage wall with no windows. So there is room for variances, and this is one of them. This is the last lot on that road. Enderses need that access for their future development. If you guys don't want to look at future development.
I'm not
Road
talking
issues
about-
is, we're not talking about the road.
I'm talking about the variance you requested. Only.
Okay, what was it? I just told you I could be 5 feet away if I turned the house the other way with a 50-foot wall. So this house needs to be a 3-bedroom home to fit their family of 4. Now, if we have a single person or just an elderly couple, you could put probably a smaller house, in there. But I wasn't told when this property was purchased that that street was closed, and I still believe it's open. I watched it being plowed. I watched school buses come through that development when it was opened up. The city took it over, and then they blocked it off. And I'll tell you, residents of Cedar Hills want that open as an exit, another exit for safety, fire, a flat road going out in the wintertime versus the steep hill. We're adding another 20 residents up there, and if the Enderses develop that property like they're talking about, you're trying to close that road down. They're talking about potentially developing the land behind it.
Nope.
That goes right up to my property.
Nobody said anything about closing that existing road. It's just that it's not acceptable to use as it is,
It
correct?
has been, but if it isn't, let's fix it. They're up there last fall putting blacktop in. Didn't they do
So I
a
can
good enough
speak to
job?
that, Mayor and the council. There's a difference between vacation and closing, as I explained earlier. This piece of sandstone is closed, and it's closed because it was never opened. The fact that people were driving out there, should the city have maybe put a sign out there sooner, you can debate those details, but it was never opened by the city. It'd be akin to a farmer using a farm access. It's never been opened, it's never been closed. And if we hit the 6-year mark of regular use and maintenance, then you may have an issue, but we haven't here. So this road area isn't vacated. It won't affect any future development. If the Enders want to come and develop, they would use this access. They would have to bring that access up to city standards. And the issue really comes down to who pays for it. I mean, for one, the city can't reopen the rest of Sandstone. It has been vacated. The only way to reopen the rest of Sandstone would be to work with the property owner to get that rededicated. That's a whole different process. The only thing the city could open is this T section we're talking about. And if Enders were to develop, they would come in, they'd propose a development, it'd get platted, they would finish Sandstone because the road isn't finished, and that's how that would get taken care of. So it's not a permanent closing the road. And again, it was never opened. The city's not closing it. It's just never been opened, and now we're making that clearer with our signage. It doesn't affect any of the lots on Bluff. They can still access off of Bluff. So the future development isn't an issue here, and the vacation of the road is not, I'm not saying it won't ever come up, but that's not something that has been discussed.
Okay.
I would say if the road is there, it should be fixed. It needs to be a turnaround. And I don't know how you can close a road in the process of us trying to build a house that fronts the road. Now, that road's been open, they've been using it, so how do you know it's closed?
Because it was never,
You got a barricade on the other side, we know that's closed, you're gonna run right into the brick wall. But going right, you won't. Why are they plowing it if it's closed? Why are they maintaining with blacktop if it's closed?
I think the council understands, so unless they have further questions from you, the public portion of this is closed.
Anyone else?
No,
I personally have no issues with the variance.
well, I do, and I voted no on the planning commission. You should build a house to fit the lot, not the other way. And there's been so much discussion here about Sandstone Road. To me, that's irrelevant. It's the variances that you're requesting are way, way out of line to me. New construction, to me, you shouldn't do that. Build the house to fit the lot. I know the question is, you want to fit it so it faces out on sandstone. That can't be done. So you have to face it to do it on bluff. And yes, maybe you need to do a different style of house or whatever for this particular family. We all want houses to be built here, but
Are you understanding me on how I could put a garage wall 50 foot long, 5 feet away from that line?
I
Sir?
understand that.
Yep.
Design a different type of house or split that middle lot, empty lot there between
It's not
what you want.
feasible to do that. The homeowner isn't feasible to buy more property.
Well, then create one lot. If that's.
Did you
that's
just
your
hear what I
issue.
said? It's not feasible to buy more property, nor is the other guy on the other side willing to buy more
But that's
property.
that's not the city's problem.
You know, Rick, you said earlier, when you were discussing all this and describing it, you said, if they didn't need a 3-bedroom house, we could put something smaller on there.
So you're telling him to leave one of his kids outside?
No, I'm not. I'm saying there are other building lots in Cannon Falls that might work better for this. I mean, you said today when we went up there and looked, you said, well, what if we took off the 3-season porch and then asked for that in a year or two? Would you go for it then? And I said, but the house is still too big, right? You said, yeah. Well, geez, this
Well,
is
it isn't too
hard.
big. It isn't, it's under
You
2,000 square foot.
Well, but the way that it sits, the way you've got it.
The other two homes I showed you with Jason's and my mother-in-law's, and those houses are fitting that way
But
because
these don't, this one doesn't. This
It
one
fit-
does not fit.
it fits going the other way.
Yeah. And I know of another house in town that faces the wrong way and it sticks out like a sore thumb. So I don't know. I don't think we should do this. That's my thought.
I'm going to take a little different approach on this. The road to me is irrelevant, and I don't think what you're trying to do is anything crazy. The issue that I have is, everyone that's built houses in Cannon Falls over the years, I'm sure would have loved to have a bigger garage, a bigger house, closer to the road, but they had to follow the rules. They had to make sure they were at the setbacks, and if we were to approve this, then we're basically saying, well, all you need to do is ask for a variance and we'll just let you do what you want. Well, then why even have a code? So in fairness, people in the past that they had to follow the rules. I'm sure they would have loved to have a bigger house. Everyone would. I would. But we have these rules to keep things consistent and fair so that, we don't have to sit up here and pick winners and losers. Yeah, we give this guy a variance, not this guy though. So to me, like the road and what you want to do is irrelevant. I just think kind of on a technical grounds. I don't think on a new construction we should do this.
I've been building for 40 years in town, and I've gone through quite a few different variances through the years. And the mayor, John Eltoff, sat on the planning committee, and he told me they approved several variances. And I know several variances that were just approved within the last couple of years for a 4-season porch, so.
Was it on new
This
construction
isn't-
though?
It was on an existing home, but the porch was a new construction.
Right.
It's still encroaching on the setback.
But I don't think we should start out kind of piggybacking on what Derek just said. I don't think we should start things out in a bad way. It's kind of like starting a marriage off and one of the two doesn't really love the other one. I mean, it could really be problems. I don't know.
Now, as was also noted in our packet, if we were to approve this, which we shouldn't, we potentially down the road open the city to a challenge or possible lawsuit. And why open that door? I think, Derek, you had it dead on there. We put these requirements in place for a reason, so let's follow them as much as we humanly can.
Anyone else? Well, I think the council's got two choices. They can, a motion to approve the variance or a motion to not approve the variance.
I will make a motion to deny the variance.
I will second.
There's been a motion to deny by Bringold and a second by Lundell to deny the variance. Any discussion? Could we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Bringold,
Aye.
Duncan,
Aye.
Gesme,
I,
Cronenberger,
No.
Lundell,
Aye.
Montgomery absent.
The motion passes 4-1. Okay, reports. We got Kyle from the chamber.
Good evening. I hope everyone's enjoying the cooler weather. It will be here for a little while. The chamber did have our 30th golf tournament this past week, and we had 16 teams. We had over 90 door prizes to give out as awards and raffle tickets winners. And so it was a great success. And it was multiple chamber members that worked together to get this to be pulled off. Simply because it was at Summit Golf Club. So we had tents, we had tables and chairs, we had a caterer, we had a beverage truck. So it was a really big community event. And I want to thank everyone for participating, and especially there were 19 volunteers that helped make this thing go off. So that was wonderful. Our next two events are what we call open air fair. And what they are is they are on 4th Street and Mill Street, but the vendors are on the sidewalks. And so the vendors will have their tables back to the building, so you'll have the right-of-way to be able to go through their canopy, through their booth, for their strollers, anything like that. And, you know, you might get talked to because now you're in their booth. The other nice thing about the open air fair is, because I've had a lot of questions about this, why aren't we doing the fun fests? Number one, it was COVID. Yes, that's done and gone, but plans were made and publicity was done. The thing that is really good about an open air fair, instead of having all of the people, all the participants in 2 blocks, all stuffed together in 2 blocks, they are now covering from Mill Street Bridge to the library, from the Mill Street intersection all the way down to Highway 19. And everybody gets exposure, because they'll walk by the hardware store, they'll walk by the realtors, they'll walk by the boutiques. And so there's a really good benefit to doing an open air fair. Our next one is July 8th, which is this Thursday. And then we also have one scheduled for Thursday, August 12th. They are 2:30 to 6:30 p.m. We will have a DJ and entertainment. And again, we're going to have a lot of door prizes. And so I hope everyone comes out. We do have a new food vendor coming into town. It's a barbecue vendor, and so something new and unique, so that'll be fun. The other nice thing about this event is Lawrence Meats is giving away free hot dogs.
I saw that.
McDonald's is giving away free McCafe iced coffee. And Bear Crop Science is giving away free pollinator habitat seeds. So there's lots of free stuff to be able to walk around and do. And so I hope everyone comes down on Thursday, Mill Street and 4th Street. And if you have any questions, we do have some new vendors, new from the past. And so in August, we will have even more. Those are the 2 big things right now. I do want to congratulate the Cannon Valley Fair Board. That was an excellent fair. The attendance, I was a parking, or a gate person. We were turning people away because the parking lot was full. But then things got changed around and opened up, and we got everybody in. I mean, that's fabulous. And I just congratulate that whole team for doing such a great job. And the parade was wonderful, too. Anybody got to see that?
That was in it.
That was awesome. Any questions? Okay, there you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
Okay, EDA, I don't know if we got anything.
Do you
on
have
that.
any?
Yeah,
Sure.
take that.
EDA, we talked a little bit about the Keller Bartman project. Also, we talked about submittal of a small town grant. It was a pretty short meeting, but that was about the two things that we discussed. An invoice for a promotional. Other than that, it wasn't much.
Okay, Public Works, Derek?
Yeah, a lot of the things on the consent agenda we talked about. A couple things that didn't make the consent agenda. Riverside Terrace came to us. They've had a lot of leaks, especially around winter time. Wondering if we would look into refunding partial on the sewer credit. We didn't take any action on it. I think we're going to bring it up again next meeting. Also, the owner of, is it called Antiques on 4th? The old Germ Seds is what I call it. With our new paving, water can be flowing into his basement. So I think Dan was maybe.
You were going to look
I don't
into
know.
that?
We didn't take an action on that, but that's something that Public Works is working on. And I think that was it, right?
We talked about school crossings.
Oh, yeah.
A school crossing.
School crossings. That was a lot of debate on that, a lot more than there should be.
Yeah.
With the Highway 19 project. And, yeah, we're going to be
Where to
putting
put
some
them
in.
because
Where to put 'em,
the
how
state
many.
helps us with those
Yep,
financially, so want to make sure we put them in the right places.
exactly. I think that was it.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
about it.
Park Board? Let's see. Well, we talked a little bit about John Birch Park.
Yeah, there was a
Ongoing
lot of discussion on John Birch Park.
Yeah.
Talked about the donation of Eastside Park money.
Yep.
We talked about the drinking fountain donation from Art.org. So those are the three big topics.
Okay. Okay, let's go around. Jeff, anything tonight? Anything else? Neil? Derek? Mary Jo?
Nothing?
Laura?
Nope.
Bill?
Nope.
Steve?
Just a question for you, Dan. The alleys that you're paving, are you done this year? Or is there a schedule of?
We're paving 2 alleys, actually.
Okay. Somebody that still has a gravel alley was wondering what the schedule was, and I said, well, I'd ask Dan, because he knows everything.
That got approved at 2 meetings ago, last meeting.
But do you know the list and the schedule of how we're going to approve the rest of them? Or
I don't have that, no.
so I can say I don't know? Okay.
You can say I don't know.
I'll say Dan
There you
doesn't.
go.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Brad, do you want to step up and you got anything to talk about these?
Well, I can snap up and I can talk. I don't know if you want
We love it when you come and talk to us.
It's been a long time since I've been here. I thought it was kind of fitting that we had our first in-person county board meeting at the Cannon Fair. We hadn't met in person since March 17th of 2020, so it was nice to get back together. I did hand out to the council members and some of the staff and this was pretty much the same information I gave when I talked to all the townships at their annual meetings. It's a 5-year road plan. It's not so much, I gave it to you for a couple of reasons. One, of course, we know 24 is on the schedule and it's getting work done finally. That's been kind of a thorn in my side since I got on the county board to get that project going and getting it done, and it finally is. Should be graded this year, should be hard surface next year. So we're excited to get that done. But really the other reason I gave this is so people can see, and this is public, this was in our packet, we approved it several months ago, what projects we'll be working on. But one of the most important pieces on here for me was to watch, as I've watched for years, our road projects and the lack of funding. And finally, the local option sales tax, which was controversial, may still be controversial, is generating about $3.2 million a year. That kind of surprised us. The projections when we first started talking about it were 1.7 million a year. And that's that 0.5% sales tax that's dedicated totally towards construction projects on county roads. When we passed it, they said it was going to be maybe 2.3, and it's ending up being 3.2. The interesting thing is it has not dropped one iota during COVID. That 3.2 million was the same in 19 as it was in 20, as it is proving to be in 21. But on here, if you look at the revenue part, where it talks about state aid, municipal, local, lost, which is the local option sales tax, it is fully, in most cases, a third of our revenue for road construction. And that's an important piece, because if you took a third of that out of there, if we didn't have the local option sales tax, pretty much a third of those projects would go away. We wouldn't get to them. And we know they're all in need. Even in this 5-year plan, we're not caught up by any stretch when we get to the end of it. The one thing I talked to our finance director today, and he's trying to get from the Department of Revenue where the sources of that 3.2 million are coming from. And what I'm more interested in knowing is how they changed from pre-COVID to during COVID, and how they changed going out of COVID. Because we know the hospitality industry took a big dive.
Yeah.
Hotels, eating establishments took a big dive. But obviously, with the revenue not changing, that means people were still spending the same amount on taxable things. So I'll be interested to see that. But it's just good that we have that. And one of the reasons it passed was that we would now have enough dollars when the 52 project happens. We're responsible for between 5 and 6 million on that project. We would not have to borrow any money, and we don't. We won't have to borrow any money.
That's huge.
To cover that. That's huge.
Huge.
That's huge because it's not a liability going forward for us. The next few pages I gave you, the first couple are about the CARES dollars and how they were spent. And I just wanted to share that so you saw where it went. And the biggest part went to citizens and businesses countywide. Some went to the county to do the things we needed to do with COVID, and some went to some improvements in some county items that will be helping us long-term. So that was that. The next one is the business nonprofit part, which was the state attempt to help businesses with COVID. I think the thing I see out of this, if I really dig into it, is that Cannon Falls got like 29% of those dollars from the state. And that is really, you're not 29% of the businesses in the county, in Cannon Falls. Your CETA rep, Laura Qualley, did an outstanding job of getting people into that program and getting them to apply and use those dollars. I always say when we look at grants and we look at funding that comes down from either the feds or the state, once it's in a grant form, the money's already spent. We just got to be aggressive to get our portion to come to Cannon Falls or to come to Goodhue County or to come to southeast Minnesota. The money's already going to be going somewhere. We just need to get our share. I really don't have any more to share other than land use issues are difficult at the county. They're difficult in cities. They're difficult everywhere. As I meet with commissioners around the state, land use is always a very difficult one to handle. So, thank you. If you got any questions, my number's on the website, and call me with anything you want to know about. And good job working on the Keller Bartman project. They don't come easy. We know that. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Okay. Just a couple program notes. Finance Committee is wrong on here. It's this Thursday, July 8th at 5 o'clock. I think we got... And EDA is Thursday, August... Well, no. Planning Commission is July, just meetings that are before our next council meeting. Planning Commission is Monday, July 12th, and Library Board is Monday, July 12th. Okay, that being said, let's turn over public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the record, and kindly limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comments must be respectful, pertinent to city business, and adhere to the applicable data privacy rules. The City Council will not take action on any issue raised by the public, but may choose to schedule consideration of the item on a future agenda.
Well, I was really hoping that Matt was here tonight. I know that he was wondering about my bid on that major curb renovation up there on Limestone Road. I don't know why he didn't call me. Didn't make sense to me. If you had any questions, Bill, you were kind of questioning it. You see me at the golf course. Why wouldn't you talk to me about it and ask me what's up? For those of you that don't know what's going on up on Limestone Road, remember, that's rated as a number 1 with your former city engineer. The road's collapsing, so are the curbs. My new estimator over here missed the mark by a ways. John, you were up there. So is Neil. You saw what I was into. It's quite a quagmire. That went to bid 2 different times to remove and replace the curb and the bad blacktop. Well, that ain't going to cut it. And I was on the Public Works at the time, and I made it very clear that that wasn't the problem. The problem is underground. How much of a problem and how deep, I have no idea. But I know that I didn't have guts enough to estimate it, but you do have the bill, and it is what he said it was going to be, correct? Okay. There were severe soils corrections to be done, and I didn't get to the bottom of it, and there's going to be more in the streets. It's a disaster, to say the least. Why I didn't get a call, I don't know. There must have been some discussion with Mike Eltoff, though, back and forth, so we're conferring with him, but not with me. And there were several of you that were raving about the rapport with the local contractor. I have been one for 45 years. I'm at your father-in-law's today. I was at your aunt's last week. I bought the business from your grandfather. I've been out to Hancock Concrete for I don't know how many years. John's afraid to invite me out anymore. I have to actually give a bid now when I go out there. Otherwise, they've hired me and trusted me to do the projects, no questions asked. And there's never been a problem. So I don't know what you're all so skeptical about, especially when you're delving into them streets up there. Hymek Harris, that's Harris that was the low bidder on the heating unit, which I know nothing about, but I do know Hymek. And I worked with them and did a major renovation of the high school 5 years ago with them. They are like the premier mechanical contractors, not just in this area, but in this country. So for you guys to sit here and badmouth them, not knowing the first thing about them and talking about it, whatever's on, yeah, Derek, I'm talking to you on social media? Really? That's how we're going to judge people? It's interesting. So anyway, and Derek, just so that you know, the Resnor unit, I have an invoice, it's under $20,000 for that unit. And Harris, they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for a long, long time, in a lot bigger places than Cannon Falls.
Anyone else, public input?
Don't worry, Mayor, I'm not coming for a double dose.
Chris Albrecht again. I was curious, what is going on with Semcra and the outlot to the east of me? I understand that is coming back to the city, $1. Do we know where that status is now?
All I can tell you is we're working on it.
You're working on it. I'd be curious because I originally, some years ago, I had presented at looking at that property, and I'm still interested in it. But I'm just curious as to where that is. So if you guys could find out, that'd be fantastic. And, you know, maybe let me know, or we can get it on the agenda sometime downstream here. That would be awesome. Because originally my plan was multi-use, or multi-unit senior housing, triplexes. So that was my hope. But it would be interesting to see, kind of find out where we're standing on all that, because I know it's just kind of sitting. There'd be some thought of maybe something future. So that's all I
You
have.
asked me about that before, but really nothing's changed, nothing.
I know.
Well, I said to keep.
Semcra.
I'll keep in touch with you, Semcra.
Yeah, Semcra. Yeah, that's all you have to say. All right, thanks.
Anyone else, public input? Third and final call, public input. Not hearing any, I'll close the public input. And with that, I take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Duncan. Second. Second by Lundell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.